Hey player, let's talk about why we play Helldivers 2. More specifically, let's talk about the narratives of the game's Warbonds. First of all, when I say narratives, I distinguish it from storytelling. The game purposefully does very little on the storytelling front. The story that is told is primarily told through a little bit of in-game text and the major orders. The game is quite rich though on the narrative tone. The narrative tone is how the game shows us the story and the world through the game design. In my last video, you can click on it here, I talked about how the issue with the Polar Patriots was one of lacking narrative tone more than anything else. In this video, I thought I would show how I would go about designing a new warbond, one that is rich in narrative flavor. As I also mentioned in the previous video, I do believe that Arrowhead need to put more effort into the narrative tone of their warbonds now that the community has recovered from their honeymoon eyes. Let's start. When considering how to design the warbond, I need two lenses. One that is the existing narrative lens. We need to make sure that this warbond and all the components within it fit the existing narrative. This includes the existing narrative elements such as other weapons, other warbonds, and the overall narrative elements. The other lens we need is the mechanical lens, making sure that whatever narrative elements we design, their narrative tone is supported by the mechanics we put in play. Let's design a next warbond. Looking at new warbond with our two lenses, we need to design a warbond that tells a different core narrative than the existing ones. And looking at these four warbonds, we get strong soldier, technology, destruction, and brutes. One narrative trope that springs to mind missing for me is stealth. So I suggest our next warbond is designed around that trope. And while we are still in this space, we could do a quick brainstorm to find synonyms for stealth. The warbond could be called Silent Soldier, and while this would meet the criteria of describing the warbond and what it does not latch on to the overarching narrative that of Super Earth and managed democracy. Instead, I think the warbond should be called Silent Majority. Individually, we understand the words silent being, well, yeah, silent, a majority. When we talk about soldiers, it brings connotations to armies and overpowering forces. Together, the two words compose a different phrase. This term is usually used when describing demographics in a democracy who do not make their voices heard in the public debate. Mechanically, we still do not need to worry too much because all warbonds have the same mechanical elements: three tiers, three primary weapons, one secondary weapon, one grenade, and one booster, as well as three armors and helmets. Okay, next. Let's look at each tier and design a narrative elements to them. Each tier provides a separate distinct narrative to the other tiers while operating within the same space. If I was to think stealth gameplay and find some tropes for that, I would initially come up with sneaking, someone being unseen, getaway, someone who has been discovered and needs to get away, and sniper, someone they never found anyway, who did everything from a distance. And I think these could be our three layers for this warbond. Okay, the first tier. I think this one should be the sneaking tier, mostly because it is the first thing I would think about for this narrative trope. The first tier of the warbond sets the narrative tone for the rest of the warbond, and I think sneaking is the most important element of stealth gameplay. We have three elements we need to address for this tier of the warbond. The warbond needs a weapon, an armor, and one of the three secondary items: a gun, a booster, or a grenade. I suggest that this layer provides the booster, mostly because I have reasons for wanting the grenade and the pistol on the different tiers. Okay, for the armor, let's start with the armor. In a previous video, I broke down armor passives in the game and discussed how existing passives mostly consist of two minor passives, and I suggested that breaking them up and providing two of these half passives to an armor would allow for more interesting armor design. I'll use the same approach here. Also, I've argued, and I'm not the only one, that each warbond should have a unique armor feature. So, a stealth armor feature already exists in the game, so we do not need a new one of those. But if we think about the stealth gameplay, it is based primarily on crouching and being prone in this game, meaning the unique passive could be one that incentivizes the player going prone and crouching. We already have a feature that makes you better at aiming when you're crouching or prone. But when I'm thinking of stealth gameplay, it's more than just shooting. I'm thinking about mobility. And having toyed with some different ideas, I've come up with a unique ability for this warband that increases stamina recovery when crouching or prone. This gives the player incentive to go crouching or go prone at the end of each sprint and allows the stealth character to move about with more ease from location to location. So, our stealth gameplay armor will get the warband's unique passive, as well as the existing stealth passive. While I think the helmet should also have unique passives, I won't talk about it here. I will mention though that I think all the helmets in the warbands should have hoods. Next, let's talk about the booster. Using the same rationale, I think the booster should be one that supports crouching characters. An easy solution would be a booster that slightly reduces detection range of everyone in the squad. I'm not sure this is a good one though, because that would only be interesting to bring on an all stealth squad. Instead, I think it should be something that has a broader use, something that incentivizes going crouching or prone. So I thought to simply have a lesser version of the recoil reduction bonus we get when we go prone from the armor. Because you also may want to have that on your stealth soldier who's already going prone a lot. Lastly, let's talk about the weapon. As a weapon that supports this narrative trope, I think we should have a weapon with a suppressor. A weapon that is significantly less loud than other weapons, and I propose this weapon be an SMG. It could be an assault rifle also, but I propose the SMG because there are fewer existing weapons in this space and because of the SMG's one-handed feature. I like the idea of a roguelike soldier who can use a hand to carry stuff around while staying stealthy and mobile without having to compromise and drop the package that they're carrying around. The next tier is the getaway tier. If we look at the armor, it needs the Warbond passive as well as another passive. From the 32 passives I've proposed in another video, I suggest one that reduces the soldier's stamina depletion when running, as it will further help this soldier get to different points. This is a skirmisher armor. The special equipment I propose for this tier is a new grenade. Looking at the grenade space, I think tactical explosives are missing. Especially if you want to further support tactical and stealth gameplay, I suggest that these explosives have a longer fuse time than any other explosives when thrown, but also when you equip the grenade and hold the reload button, you'll get the option to change the fuse timer for the next thrown grenade. You could maybe change between 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and 45 seconds fuse time. And just like when you're looking at a stratagem, it tells you when it'll drop. Look at this grenade, will tell you when it would explode. This grenade would not be the new best grenade, but I think it would be a fun way to try and take out factories or bug holes without triggering the enemies in the area, or to set off an ambush for enemies in an area. Lastly, the weapon. Now that we have a silenced weapon, what weapon would help us get away? I'm thinking a weapon with stopping power, maybe a concussive weapon. And looking at the current game and the weapon space, we do have two concussive weapons. So this one should not exist in those spaces. Instead, I propose a shotgun that can quickly help you stop multiple enemies, allowing for a courageous escape. And design-wise, this one should be lever action because we need that visual narrative. Lastly, we have a third layer, the sniper layer. We could provide the armor with the passive that reduces recoil when crouching or prone, and while that would be cool, it would not help the weapon I propose for this tier. So maybe instead this armor should simply carry additional ammunition for their primary weapon. The sniper may not be running with their fellow Helldivers, but supporting them from afar, and for this reason, they may be less likely to get their hands on those supplies that are dropped down. This passive could then help them sustain fire longer. The support weapon here, I think, should be a pistol with a suppressor. It is then the option for any character that wants to bring a little bit of stealth on any given mission, regardless of their primary weapon. And lastly, I propose the weapon be a sniper rifle style marksman rifle. The existing marksman rifles are quite alike. I propose that this one is quite different. That it exists in a space between the anti-material rifle and a marksman rifle. This rifle should have high damage and high armor penetration, but at the same time, it only has one round. It needs to be reloaded after each shot. These are the thoughts I would put into creating a warband. Thank you for watching this long. listening to my thoughts. Until next time, players gonna play, haters gonna hate, and I'm just gonna sit back and play nice with others. See ya.